Even Stanford University has had enough of test optional admissions. That is the topic of today's video. My name is Craig Meister. I'm a college admissions coach. You can learn more about me and how you can work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process on my website, which is collegemeister.com. And if you're interested in learning about whether or not you are or your student is on track for selective college admission in the United States of America, visit areyouontracktogetin.com. Again, areyouontracktogetin.com, at which you will complete a free 3-minute assessment. Your results will be emailed to you right away, and they will help you determine whether or not you are or your student is on track for selective college admission in the United States of America. What a way to end the week at Stanford University. A lot of things going on. First, 13 protesters were suspended, arrested, and charged with felony burglary and put out on $20,000 bail for really ransacking the property over there at Stanford. My goodness gracious. Then a filthy tent encampment was dismantled and thrown in a truck. And now, to cap it all off, Stanford University has decided to return to test-required admissions. And I feel as though they're interrelated, even though no one will admit it. Here is the full quote from the Stanford report. Stanford will resume standardized test requirement for undergraduate admission. Stanford will resume requiring either the SAT or the ACT for undergraduate admission, beginning with students applying in fall 2025 for admission to the class of 2030. So, if you are watching this video and you are applying in fall 2024 for the class of 2029, this does not apply to you. You may be able to get in under the door falling down. Test scores represent only one part of a holistic review of each applicant to the university, for which academic potential is the primary criterion for admission. How erudite. Performance on standardized tests is an important predictor of academic performance at Stanford. A review by the Faculty Committee on Undergraduate Admission and Financial Aid has confirmed. The renewed testing requirement will allow Stanford to consider the fullest array of information in support of each student's application. Note how they're mentioning the renewed testing requirement as though it's just going back to the old way that it was. It's not quite that simple. And I'll show you that in a minute as we read on. Stanford paused its testing requirement in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic, beginning with students applying to the class of 2025. Since then, undergraduate applicants to Stanford have been welcome to submit test scores, but have not been required to do so. The university is reinstating the test requirement in a manner that will allow all students enough lead time to plan and prepare for testing. Scores from the SAT or ACT will only be required beginning with students applying in fall 2025 for admission to the class of 2030. Now, again, they wait to the very bottom of this little press release to share what I deem to be the most important part of the puzzle, which is, quote, Stanford will continue to review applicants in context and to consider each piece of an application as part of an integrated and comprehensive whole. More specifically, the university evaluates academic achievement and potential in the context of each student's background, educational pathway, work and family responsibilities, and other factors. So this is very important for you to understand. It is something that I have alluded to in various videos of late, which is holistic admissions in the United States has fully transitioned now to mean equitable admissions, because that last paragraph of that Stanford report press release made very clear that different applicants, depending on their demographics, depending on their upbringing, depending on their circumstances or where they went to school, etc., will be held to different standards at the whims of the admissions committee members. There will be no very clear org chart as to how to do this. It will be kept very close to the vest. There is no policy and procedure manual needed, of course, any longer, because ultimately the individuals in admissions offices at schools like Stanford are of like mind. They basically march to the beat of the same drummer, and they know what they want to do. And they know who they want to treat to one standard, and they know who they want to treat to another standard. And so as a college admissions applicant or a parent of one, all you can control is knowing which schools require what information, what data, what forms, and in this case, what potential scores. I do encourage students, of course, anytime they're applying to Stanford, to have the highest test scores possible to put a feather in your cap or a feather on your application. But what I will say is, regardless of whether you're applying for fall 2029 or fall 2030 graduation, so basically for fall 2025 admission, or I'm sorry, fall 2026 admission or fall 2025 admission, which is where the bifurcation is happening between test required and test optional, you need to control what you can control. And what you can control is the quality of the writing on your application, the quality of your scores, the quality of your grades. You obviously indirectly control the quality of your teacher recommendations and your counselor letter recommendation. What you do not control, of course, are your demographics and what school you went to. In many cases, that's beyond your control in many cases as a student, especially. So just look at this situation with wide eyes, clear eyes, and know that there's a lot you can control. There are some things you cannot control, and you just hope and pray that you produce a compelling enough application where you will get in. And if you don't get in, you don't get in. There are other fish in the sea, as they say, other than Stanford. Trust me. But Stanford now has joined the motley crew of colleges and universities that have returned to being test required in recent months. Half of the Ivies are in the same boat for the 24-25 admission cycle. Cornell is joining Stanford for the same cycle that I just mentioned, for the class basically of 2030, the graduating college class of 2030, those entering fall 2026. So more schools will join the ranks of these institutions that are going back to test required, because though they did not want to dwell on it in their press release, Stanford knows the straight dope, which is the quality of the students, academically, intellectually, civilly, in many different ways, is quite marked in contrast to the students that they were receiving in a test required world. So they want to return to being test required, but of course, with the caveat and the carve out that they get to make the rules and lower their standards whenever they darn well please. And that is what Stanford will be doing. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and also consider subscribing to my channel. If you want help for the entire or maybe even just part of the college admissions process, you may want to call on me and go to my website, collegemeister.com. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and most importantly, stay stress-free throughout the entire college admissions process.